Hi everyone, can you hear me? You can type on the chat section if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Thank you. So once again, good morning and welcome to today's webinar. Today we are looking at GIS and BIM for the real estate. My name is Evelyn Lele and we're going to take you through this session with my colleague. His name is Elijah Ocheng. So in case you have any questions, as Victor has mentioned, please use the chat section. Our teams are on standby to respond to you, or we'll have a session at the end of this. So my name is Evelyn Lele. I work with Esri Eastern Africa, and I'm going to invite my colleague Elijah to introduce himself.
Thank you, Evelyn. Thank you everyone for joining us in this webinar. I'm Elijah Ocheng. I'm going to take up the BIM presentation part, so basically showing how these two different technology integrate. Looking forward to presenting to you.
Thank you. So yes, today we are looking at GIS and BIM for the real estate. GIS is Geographic Information Systems and BIM is Building Information Modeling. And for this particular webinar, we're mainly going to look at the planning and the design phases of real estate development. So as some of you may have figured out, Esri and Autodesk got into a collaborative relationship. And this relationship is mainly aimed at streamlining a combination of workflows and processes and different data sources. So the main aim or the main focus for this webinar would be actually to show how you can be able to use both GIS and BIM technologies to streamline workflows within the real estate. And I think what I need to mention is that GIS and BIM are actually complementary. GIS needs BIM and BIM needs GIS. So for this particular presentation, I'm gonna be dealing with the GIS bit. So I'm going to provide the context, and then Elijah will be handling the BIM bit. So he's gonna provide the content. So I'll start with the GIS section. So GIS is Geographic Information System. And with GIS, you can be able to collect, you can be able to organize, you can be able to communicate and better understand spatial information, or what we are calling the science of our world. And so one of the main strengths of actually using geographic information systems, that's GIS, is the ability to do analysis. And from the analysis, then you're able to get deeper insights of your data. You're able to get patterns or reveal patterns and relationships about your data. And so this is actually able to make you make informed decisions. So the GIS we're talking about is based on what we call the ArcGIS platform. This is the Esri ArcGIS platform. And this platform includes distinct product offerings and solutions that work well together. So we have different components of this product. We have desktop solutions and applications like ArcGIS Pro. We have applications and solutions that you could use on the web, and so on and so forth. And the beauty with this platform is that you can actually be able to work anywhere at any given time. So I'm gonna take us through this in a short while. So what we're actually looking at today is GIS providing both the framework for analysis and decision making in the real estate for this particular webinar. So think of the data sets where you're going to get this data integration and management, having to visualize that data, and so mapping and visualization. And then the core, or one of the main strengths of this platform, is actually the analysis bit and modeling. Then from there, you can be able to do your plan and design. So all these processes that we're talking about definitely lead to informed decision making. And after you've made your decisions, then you're able to take action. So this is what this platform can actually be able to this is what this platform can be able to do. So we're talking about GIS providing both the framework and the process for analysis and decision making. So the main reason why we have this presentation today is that we noticed, especially professionals within the built environment, talk of the architects, talk of the planners, talk of the engineers. So we noticed that we actually have disintegrated workflows. And so this integration between GIS and BIM is actually going to be an answer to most of the challenges that we've had. So what you're seeing on my screen is just a workflow showing how GIS and BIM are integrated. So we have Revit, which is a BIM solution product. Then we have ArcGIS Pro. So if you have data sets that you're working with in Revit, you can actually import that directly to ArcGIS Pro. ArcGIS Pro is one of the main desktop applications that we have within the ArcGIS platform. And then, of course, the data sets will either be 2D or 3D layers. So then these 2D or 3D layers can then be published to what we call ArcGIS Online, or if you're working, so it can be published to ArcGIS Online or the enterprise portal. So the difference between these two is that ArcGIS Online is cloud-based and enterprise portal is deployed on premise. And then we have the other application product here. We have InfraWorks. So if you need to work with different data sets, you can actually get that directly from ArcGIS Online and use it in InfraWorks. So for this particular demonstration, we'll mainly be demonstrating how you can get data sets from ArcGIS Pro, publish that data set to ArcGIS Online, and then my colleague will take us through how to actually be able to design or access that information from ArcGIS Online and work with it in InfraWorks. So in terms of the integration patterns between both GIS and BIM, so we have data in different file formats. And I think one of the main challenges has been because we didn't have the interoperability between these products and solutions before, but now that is actually possible with the GIS and the BIM integration. So you can have data sets in the different file formats. If you're working with Revit, you'll have Revit files. If you're working with InfraWorks, if you're working with any other CAD data sets, you can actually have that brought into ArcGIS. That is the ArcGIS desktop, which is mainly for the purposes of this presentation is ArcGIS Pro. And then the most important thing that I also need to mention is that for this particular integration, we have the design software plugin. And I think what we're mainly going to look at today is using the Autodesk connector for ArcGIS, so then you're able to connect to the ArcGIS Online platform. So then after you've published after you've gotten your data sets to the desktop application, then you can be able to publish that to ArcGIS Online. And then on my screen, we have desktop, web, or mobile. So you can actually be able to create applications that can be accessed and used on the desktop, on the web, and on various mobile devices. So this is, I thought this is really important to point out even as we go through this presentation. So my role will be mainly to show us how we can be able to use GIS to identify potential sites for real estate development. So I'm going to provide the context. So the first thing that one of the main things that you can actually be able to do with GIS is analysis. And so before you do analysis, of course, you have to determine the criteria that you're going to use, get the required data sets for that particular analysis that you're going to carry out. Then, of course, there will be an aspect of reclassifying the data sets and carrying out analysis to be able to get which are the most suitable sites. So Elijah and I are working on a project in Kisumu. So I'll be taking us through analysis in the demo, showing which are the best sites that we could use, that you could actually use for real estate development in Kisumu. So my analysis will mainly be raster overlay analysis. And then the data sets that I'm going to use, I'm going to have the DEM. And then from the DEM, I'm going to extract surfaces. I'm going to extract the slope and aspect from these. Then one of the main other aspects that I thought is important when locating is proximity or access. So access is one of the main things that we are going to consider. So for the purpose of this presentation, I've mainly taken those factors, but in case you need to do analysis, you can add in as many other factors as possible. But for the purposes of this presentation, I'm only going to take us through that. So for this analysis also, we're using the model builder. So with the model builder, you're actually able to automate geoprocessing tools, as opposed to having, say, for example, you want to do analysis and you want to run each individual tool one at a time. So using the model builder, actually, we're able to automate these tools and actually have a final product, one final product. Since this is a multi-criteria analysis, we are considering various factors that we can actually be able to use for our analysis. So we're mainly going to use the model builder for ArcGIS in ArcGIS Pro. So I'm going to take us through that shortly in our demonstration. Then, of course, after identifying the the potential sites for real estate development. Then you will now go and do site assessment. Some of the factors you'll be considering are the sunlight direction, wind direction, mainly for orientation, determining how you're going to orient the various buildings and facilities within your site. So we're going to look at these shortly in the demonstration. So I'm going to hand over to Elijah to take us through the BIM bit, then we will go to the demonstration. Elijah, take us through the BIM bit.
Thanks, Evelyn. So basically just going to take you through a brief introduction to BIM and look at how it integrates and works with the various GIS. So as Evelyn had said at some point, BIM basically, GIS provides us with the context, but BIM provides us with the content, because basically before you go out there and start constructing, you need to know how does the environment there looks like, how does whatever I want to build there impact the already existing environmental and some other factors. So BIM basically is going to focus much on the design, from design to construction and even operation of the same. So there are a number of benefits of BIM, or briefly the introduction is there, that is a process of creating and managing all information and infrastructure projects, both building and infrastructure, that is before, during, and even after the construction. So before, we are looking at the design phase, during the actual construction itself, and then after is basically look at the operation and maintenance of the same. So it's the creation of a digital model of the building, which basically allows the designers and the operators to interact with the building before it's actually being constructed and after it has been constructed. So there is surely this confusion where many people confuses BIM to be a software. Just take me back to the slide, please. So there's this confusion where people confuse BIM to be a software. So it's not a 3D CAD. It's also not a technology, and it's also not for buildings, but it also includes infrastructure. So BIM is actually a process. So it's the process of basically ensuring that you get efficiency in terms of how you design, you construct, and how you even manage whatever has been constructed. So a number of benefits has been reported in terms of enhancing collaboration, coordination, improving constructability, and many others, as you can see on the slide there. So you can move to the next slide, please. So this is the introduction that I like most, of basically calling it a way of efficiently planning, designing, constructing, and managing buildings and infrastructure. So a number of those who have used the process have reported at least 25% saving in the overall project life cycle, but they only need maybe about 2% to support the optimized design, basically integrating the entire process of the designing. Next, please. So when you talk about design, so many people usually look at design just as one overall step, but design has been split into several phases. It can have at least 3 phases, but some can even go to 4 or 5. So when you talk about at least of the 3 phases, we have the planning phase, concept, and the detailed design phase. So it's this planning phase where usually we'll find a lot of this integration between trying to bring in the context of what you are designing into the actual design phase. So when you do this kind of integration where we directly integrate GIS and BIM, we will be able to ensure that you have better plans, which will also lead to better design in terms of the operation, and also basically being able to identify some of the problems that we usually face when we just go out in the field without trying to analyze, understand the context before the construction starts. So during the BIM processes also, you just don't construct, but you also have a chance of simulating the process of construction, so as the scheduling, costing, and the timelines, or basically some of the issues that you're likely to face when you just go directly into the construction. And the information that was used at the design phase and the building phase can also be directly given to the authorities, like maybe some municipal, or it may be for a real estate development agency. That information can be given to them to be able to use during the operation and maintenance phase of the project that was constructed when you use a digital BIM platform to implement your construction projects. So The main reason of this integration is basically that, as was also highlighted at some point within the presentation, that BIM basically, the two technology are interdependent in that one informs the other, and the other also fuels what is required in one technology. So like BIM basically is going to provide more information to the GIS with respect to what is being provided. But GIS provides BIM with the context of what already exists there. So BIM information is repurposed from the design data and can be a great source of information for the ongoing operation. So if the managers or the operators of the infrastructure building need to get that kind of data, they can quickly be able to get it from a BIM model. But GIS gives us the context on which we need now to do this kind of operation. So currently, people face a number of challenges when they try to work with these two technologies together. So not that people have not been using BIM and GIS, but the conventional methods are has a lot of limitations and challenges when people are trying to bring these two systems together. In that, getting up-to-date information once you have started your BIM process is usually a challenge, and also accessing the GIS during the design without data duplication is sometimes a very important challenge, in that there are a lot of duplication, especially if you can't know what's the version, what's the changes if you have been made over a period of time. Okay, so basically those are the challenges that we are trying to remove when we do this kind of direct integration with the two platforms. So this now gives us an overview of how these two systems look like. So like as we had said, that GIS provides with the context. So context could be like the existing utilities, the underground pipe networks that you could be looking at within a project area. That's like the sewer lines, water distribution networks, could be the roads, could be the building, the conservation areas, of which once we have correctly understood how they are going to impact our project, we can now finish our design work, come and construct them within the context based on the analysis that you have done on the GIS platform without any challenges and difficulties that are usually faced. So in summary, the process of planning, designing, and building requires a context. So GIS gives us the context, but BIM provides us with the content. So as we say, that context is basically the existing roads, existing building, anything that you may find on a potential project site. So before you go to the actual construction, there's need for you to perform a proper analysis and understand the impact of what you are going to build there on the existing site, and also the impact of the existing site on what you are going to build. And basically, these are some of the analysis that we'll be looking at when we're doing our demonstration. So things like maybe traffic, things like flooding, yeah. So this is how people are currently working. So we say that it is very inefficient, where you need to get GIS files in different formats. So like you may be having PDF, you may be having raster, shape files. So when you want to work with them in your CAD, which is the conventional method right now, you need to save them in different file formats and add them manually. And once I've finished with my design, if I need to share that information again with the GIS experts or GIS specialists, again, I need to do manual export of choosing the specific files. You need to worry about georeferencing, which is usually a very big problem to those who are not surveyors. You need to know the specific coordinate system of a project area so that you can import a raster image, or so that you can import the correct file to basically give you that context in the background to work with. So this is very challenging in terms of trying to interpret it. So like if you have worked with AutoCAD Map 3D, for example, this could be some typical existing information that you can bring from GIS in form of shape files. So basically trying to understand the context. So, but you know the challenges that this one prevents you with. So if you don't know the coordinate system, this will not work. If you know the georeferencing of the area, that won't work very well. The same, even if you want to work with the point clouds and any other kind of data that can be worked with on CAD and BIM, we all know the challenges that can present you with. So that's why we are going to show you the best way of integrating these two in InfraWorks and ArcGIS Pro. So if you can move to the next slide. So the way we are proposing this to happen, as opposed to that manual integration of adding and exporting data, we are looking at a system where both GIS and BIM data can sit on one platform. And whichever the phase of the project that you're working on, whether you are in the planning phase, design phase, build phase, or operation phase, you can add into it and get feedback out of that particular system in terms of the design, the context, the changes, the updates, and the analysis. And that also happens during any phase of the project, whether you're talking about operation or maintenance of the same project. So that's what we're looking at in terms of putting data at the center, because data basically influences everything. And the system that allows us to have such kind of integration in form of GIS and BIM, or basically GIS and design phases, is in Autodesk InfraWorks. So it is it's one of the greatest BIM solution in the market right now, which allows you to integrate a number of technologies in terms of combining different data, whether it's about data of the design phase, data of the construction phase, data of the operation phase, and also various contextual data in terms of the GIS for that particular project area. So it has a number of functionalities and features, as you can see on the screen. So it's it can quickly enable you to generate the context in terms of adding the project area. So when you want to start a project, it's just a matter of doing the project location, either by name or by coordinate. And once you are able to identify the project, you just create the context of the project by defining the project boundaries, or you can import that from a predefined shapefile. And once that is done, it will give you as a start freely available context data in terms of the existing roads, existing buildings, DTM, and imagery on the background to enable your work. So once that's done, you can quickly be able to move into the project and start understanding what is inside the project. So that just shows that sometimes even before you go to do the surveying work on the ground, you can have some data within InfraWorks to start with. But once the survey work is completed, because you know that survey forms a very integral part of any design process. So InfraWorks will give you some information to start with in terms of the existing information on the ground. Then once the project is mobilized and you got the surveyor captured some information, you can bring it in and integrate it with the InfraWorks. The same also with the planning phase, where we now need to start leveraging some GIS data, where we can now directly link up with ArcGIS Online to access the data that were generated in the ArcGIS Pro based on the kind of project that we are working on. And at the same time, you can now start communicating and sharing the information with the various project stakeholders at any phase of that particular project that you're talking with. Then after which we can now move to the various design phases of the project. Next, please. So the main objective of any design process is basically, as we will see, that Evelyn will be able to perform analysis and identification of the correct site, which would look like something you can see on the screen right now, an open land with some of the buildings, maybe the project area, existing roads, existing water bodies and things like that. So our main objective is to turn this into a developed area with the proposed roads, proposed buildings, parking lots, the recreational areas and what have you. So basically that's what we are going to look at, how we can start off from an open land and convert it into this kind of a model, which is very, very easy to understand. So if maybe you have seen kind of a building plan in CAD compared to what you can generate in InfraWorks like this, you'll be able to understand this is very easy to understand. You don't need to have any technical background to understand what someone is trying to depict in this project as a non-technical stakeholder who is involved on a particular project. Because you understand that not all players in the real estate are technical. Continue, please. So in summary, BIM and GIS workflows are supposed to be happening continuously, because remember that the environment or the built environment changes every day. Like you can be walking in a particular area, within 2 or 3 months, you'll realize that maybe a building was done there and people are occupying it. So both of the two systems should be made to always integrate and happen continuously, in that we know that GIS will give us the capital portfolios, but BIM will give us the capital projects. So portfolio basically is what already is existing there, but BIM gives us the projects that are being developed every now and then at whichever phase of those projects that are in question. So as within we say that all these process that you talk about can happen at any phase of the project, but because today has been highlighted at some point, we are only going to focus on the project planning. As you'll see the various analysis being performed and how we can be able to evaluate various existing conditions, generate various multiple design alternatives, and also even engage stakeholders by sharing with them our design data without actually letting them do some installation and have some learning of the various systems that we are using. So we want to use a very easy to understand system that you can quickly be able to analyze and get to understand what the designers are trying to communicate to you as a non-technical individual or someone who does not have a very good background of whatever the architect and the engineers are trying to convey within their planning processes. So for example, in terms of a plan, so we want to develop something like this. So this is something which must be very common amongst the planners and the surveyors and engineers. So once the plan is presented, so instead of presenting it in CAD, we can have it in an intuitive 3D model where we show the plan that we have and how it's going to integrate with some of the existing features on the site, like water bodies, like rivers, the infrastructure, that is roads, the trees, and what have you. So we'll be able to see that in real time when you're going to do the demonstration and the various design alternatives. So that's basically marks the end of the presentation. So maybe you can go to the demonstration now, starting with Evelyn.
Thank you, Elijah. So the next bit that we are going into is the demonstration. So I'm gonna provide the context. Just give me a few minutes to share my screen. So hope you can be able to see my screen. So this is ArcGIS Pro. So I'm going to do the analysis on ArcGIS Pro and then provide the context for Elijah to actually be able to do his development. So this is ArcGIS Pro. ArcGIS Pro is one of the main desktop applications that we have within the ArcGIS platform. And the interface is actually a ribbon-based interface similar to what we have in Word, so it's quite user-friendly. We have various tabs here. We have Map tab, Analysis tab, Edit, Imagery, and all these other tabs here. And then this application is also, it's a 64-bit application, meaning that we have faster display, faster processing, and faster analysis capabilities. So on my right, we have what we call the catalog. So similar to what we had in ArcMap. So we have the catalog having different folders. So for this particular webinar, I had created the project. So when you create a project, it actually creates a project folder for you. So we have real estate webinar, and then we have the real estate geodatabase here. So we are working with a file geodatabase. So think of a file geodatabase as a container, which allows you to have various data sets. You can have raster data sets, you can have vector data sets within a geodatabase, you can have tables and so on and so forth. So I have various data sets that we are going to use for this demonstration. So I talked about 3 factors that we are going to consider for this demonstration. So I'll have the DEM for our area. So we are working on a project in Kisumu. So I have the DEM for Kisumu, which we will use to extract both slope and aspect. And then I also have data sets on roads, mainly for accessibility or proximity. Yeah, ensuring that the area that we're going to develop is actually accessible. So I've actually done most of the preparations before, like converting all my the vector data sets that I needed to use to raster, just to make this easier. So I'm going to add the DEM here. So I'm going to add the DEM. So from the DEM, we're going to derive surfaces, both the slope and aspect. Then I'm going to also add in roads data sets. So as I mentioned, I had already done some of this before this presentation, just to make it easier. So for this particular analysis, when you're doing analysis, especially multi-criteria analysis like what we're going to use right now, it's actually important to work with the model builder for ArcGIS. So this allows us to have different geoprocessing tools or different analysis tools and run these tools to actually get an output. So I have the DEM and I have the roads data set here. So when I click on the model, yeah, so it actually opens the model builder here. So we're actually going to build a model that is actually going to do the analysis for us to be able to determine the best sites for us to actually be able to develop within Kisumu. So I'm going to add the DEM data, and I'm also going to add the roads data. Then the next thing that we are going to do, we have various analysis tools. We have very many analysis tools. So for this case, I'm going to go to the spatial analysis tool. So under geoprocessing tools, we have various tools for analysis. So I'm going to go to the spatial analyst tools. So here, and then I'm going to go to surface tools, since we're going to extract or derive surfaces from the DEM. So I thought slope and aspect could be one of the main factors that you actually consider when choosing a site for development, but you can add in as many other factors as possible. So this is just for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to drag the tool here. Let's just give it a few minutes. I think it already did 2 of them. Let me just delete one. Yeah. So here we are. So this is the tool that we're going to use to derive aspect from our DEM. So the input raster will be the DEM for Kisumu. And then the output will be the aspect that we will have derived. So let me call it aspect derived, so that doesn't confuse me. And then I'm going to work from the geodatabase. I'm going to save everything in my geodatabase. So once I click OK, so you can actually be able to see what I have here. So the blue sections, actually the blue elements are the input data sets that we had. So for instance, we have the Kisumu DEM, and then the yellow elements are the geoprocessing tools, or the tools that we are going to use for analysis. And then the green elements represents the output. So we're also going to do that for slope. So I'll simply come here, add the slope tool. Same process. So let me call it also slope derived. Yeah, so again, so it's showing that we are getting from the same DEM, which is our input, we are getting both aspect and slope from this. Then the next thing that we are going to do after generating the surfaces is actually reclassifying our data set. So we are working with the same number of classes. So I'll have uniform number of classes for all our data sets. So I'm going to search for reclassify tool. So all these are geoprocessing tools in ArcGIS Pro. Yeah, so we have reclassify spatial analyst tool. Then my input will be the surfaces that we've derived, both aspect and slope. So we can start with aspect. And then I'm going to input the number of classes that we are going to have. Just a minute. Let me just call it. So this is reclassified slope. And we are still saving it in the same geodatabase. Yes, so you have this. I'm also going to do that for the slope. So we're also going to reclassify this. So my input will be the derived slope surface. And then we're going to save it in the same geodatabase. Yeah, so you can actually be able to see what we have here. So when you do this, we are using the model builder to be able to run multiple analyses instead of having to run each analysis each of them one at a time. So the next thing that we are going to do, sorry, let me just come back here. Let me just put auto layout. So we also need to do that for our roads data set. So once we've done this, we'll now overlay all the data sets that we have, then we'll be able to get the most suitable sites for us to be able to develop. So still, I'll come to my analysis tools. Look for overlay tool. So we're doing a weighted overlay. I'll assign different weights to different data sets. So I'm going to add in the data sets that we have reclassified, that is the slope aspect, and the roads data sets that I had already prepared. So I'm just going to browse to my location where I have my data sets. Yeah, so we have them here under the real estate webinar geodatabase. So I have the derived aspect, the derived, the reclassified aspect, the reclassified slope, and the roads buffer. So I'm gonna pick these three. And then you can assign different weights to different data sets. So with weighted overlay, you assign weights to the factor that is most important to you when you're determining the most appropriate site. So maybe we can give maybe aspect 30%. Maybe the most important factor for us will be slope. Maybe we can give that 40%. And then we can give maybe another 30 to access. So again, this is for demonstration purposes. You can actually be able to refine your data sets as much as possible. So running this will take a while. So I had already had something run, but once you're done, you just click OK, and then the tool is going to run and you get your output. So this is what you actually get after. This is what you actually have after doing the analysis. So we'll have, after the weighted analysis, we'll have the most suitable sites for development. Again, I just use those three factors, but you can use as many other factors as you would want, depending on how you want to refine your analysis. So after doing that, then you'll have the suitable sites as a raster layer, which you can now add to your data. So I have still on the same geodatabase, I have the layer on suitable sites. So I'm going to add just insert a map and show us how that looks like. Let's give it a few minutes. So after running the analysis, you will get an output that just shows the suitable sites. So on a scale of 1 to 3, we have most suitable, suitable, and least suitable. So number 1 are the most suitable sites, and then the second one suitable, and then we have the least suitable sites. So after running now the suitability analysis and know which are the areas within Kisumu that we can be able to develop, then you will now go ahead and do a site plan, just a layout showing where the different things will be. So for this, for the purposes of this demonstration, I also had that ready. So we have a layout within Kisumu for a site that we actually want to develop. So from this layout here, from this site plan here, I can actually be able to show where we have the proposed transportation network, proposed drains, we have existing roads, proposed sewer lines, and so on and so forth. So I actually have these data sets. So these data sets forms the context or the basis for the design that Elijah is going to do in InfraWorks. So for him to be able to access this information that I have already prepared in ArcGIS Pro, I will need to publish this information to ArcGIS Online. So under the share tab, this is where we're actually going to share this information or publish this information to ArcGIS Online. So I'll publish this as a web layer. And then Elijah will be able to connect using the Autodesk for ArcGIS connector. He will be able to actually access this information from ArcGIS Online. So just to show you how the publishing is done, I think it's going to take a few more minutes. So this is going to provide the context. I have done everything. So once he gets these data sets, he will not be worried about what he'll just need to be worried about doing the design. So let's call it Kisumu, or let's just name it real estate webinar. And then maybe this is for demonstration purposes. And then tags just make it easy for you to be able to search for your data. So let's call it maybe Kisumu. And then you publish. So publishing again may take a while depending on the data sets, but once you click publish, then that data, this data set will be published to ArcGIS Online. So for the interest of time, I already had this published. So I'm taking us to the ArcGIS Online platform. So for you to access ArcGIS Online, simply come to arcgis.com, and then you will be prompted to sign in with your organizational credentials. So I'll put in my username and password, then I'll be able to access the ArcGIS Online account. So once I click sign in, this is the interface that I will actually get. I think it's let's give it a few minutes. Yeah, so this is the interface that I will actually get. So this is ArcGIS Online. So I'll publish my data here. So I had that already published. So from my content, we have Kisumu real estate webinar. So I had already published the data to our ArcGIS Online account. So Elijah will be able to access this information from the ArcGIS Online account. So this is how the data that we have published actually looks like. So I'm just going to open it in Map Viewer just to show that we actually have the same data sets that we had in ArcGIS Pro. So let's just give it a few minutes. Yes, so this is the data sets that we had in ArcGIS Pro after doing our analysis and doing our site plan. We have the same data for our project area in Kisumu. So this now provides the context. So Elijah is going to take us through the next bit, the next demonstration, where he's gonna access this data and actually design our site in Kisumu. So Elijah, take us to the next bit.
Thank you, Blin. I'll be sharing my screen now. So confirm once you can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, you can proceed.
Okay. So I'll basically show how you can now link up with the data that Evelyn has published in ArcGIS Online. So to do that, I said we use InfraWorks. So it's very simple program. So you basically going to use what you call model builder here as well to start creating your project context. So with the model builder, it basically allows you to be able to access any part of the world. And immediately you are able to create that app, you will be able to start accessing some of the existing information on that particular project area to get you started with your project. So as you can see, I can either zoom into the project area if I know it, or I can just type in here, like you said, this our project area is in Kisumu. So I'll just say Kisumu, then I'll click enter, then you'll be able to see zooms me directly into Kisumu, where that our project is, so like it's somewhere here. So I'll use, if I have a predefined shape, so like right now, since Evelina has already published that in ArcGIS Online, I can just go and pull out an area of interest predefined shape, or I can just mark it up with a rectangle so that I have my project area defined. Then I'll give it a name. I'll just call it Kisumu. Then I'll say create. So since I've already created this in the background, I don't want to recreate that again. So I'll just close that. So, but that's the process. So you just go into the model builder and you choose the project area either by name. You can also choose the map from a road, standard road map, to the aerial or satellite. Then you can go to see your project in a more clearer way in terms of the existing area there. So then I'll just click on create. So once that is done, it usually takes up to sometimes 3 minutes, depending on the speed of your internet connection and also on the size of the model that you are creating. So once that's done, I'll open the existing one here, which I already started off with, so that we can have a look at it. So I'll just give it some seconds. So it will open up the model for me. Okay, there we go. So this is the project. So as you can see, just very simple tools. I will not go into those ones now, but what I've done, I've saved the specific areas of interest. So like we have what you call a bookmark, the same way you can bookmark a browser, a site within your browser. That's what I've done. So I have my existing site. So this is the area where we are supposed to develop our project, and it was advised by the analysis that Evelyn ran in the ArcGIS Pro, as you are seeing. So it's an existing residential estate, but there is need for its redevelopment. So as you can see, we have some areas which look like existing footpaths, some small roads there, buildings, and what have you. So this is what we want to develop so that we can bring in new buildings and new roads and what have you based on the way that the planners have segregated it. So what I want to do, so the model that you get as a scratch gives you the information about the existing roads. So like this is an existing road, planning roads, and sometimes some of the roads, if they are already classified roads, if you select them, it will tell you even the name of that particular road. So like right now I've selected this particular road here. You can see on the top right corner where the cursor is, it tells me the name of that road. So basically that's what we're calling the context. So in that as I have to develop this, I'll do to see like if I'm designing these buildings and these roads, how is my traffic within this residential area I'm doing will impact this existing Ondiek road. Because you know that when you are developing this, there will be the generated traffic, and also new roads will also attract traffic. So how do you now plan to manage those generated traffic and the attracted traffic with respect to the existing roads on that particular area? So this is now called the master model because it's the model that you find when you generate it. So it's advised that you should create a proposal on top of the master model just to allow you to keep on referring to the existing information, because you may not want to interfere with already what was existing. So you proceed by creating a proposal. So I'll call this our proposed design or proposed plan. I'm creating an additional proposal in addition to what was existing so that I don't interfere with the as is or the context before we add any GIS information. So InfraWorks allows you to be able to generate that. So I've created that new proposal. So it's just a copy of the existing with the same information as they were. So what I'm now going to do, I'm going to link up with ArcGIS online, where the data on the ArcGIS Pro had been published, so that I can bring in the parcels, the proposed road corridors, and what have you, the way they have been planned for this particular site by the planner. So like, remember, I'm playing the role of a designer. I do not really know how they are done, but my aim is to use them and show me the areas I should do my roads. For example, if I'm a civil engineer, or if I'm an architect and the structural guys, my aim is to know exactly where the buildings should be done, the way the parcels have been subdivided. So as we say, that it's a very simple process. You don't need to worry about georeferencing and the coordinate system of the data the way they have been published. So on the Manage tab, that's on the top left corner. Under the Manage, I should go into the content.
Elijah, please reshare your screen.
You can't see my screen?
Yeah, please reshare it.
It's not visible at all. Okay, let me share. And now? Can you see now?
It's visible.
Okay.
Elijah, it's visible.
It's visible, okay. So I was saying on the top left corner, on the Manage tab, I'll be able to access content, and you can see there is an icon there for Autodesk Connector for ArcGIS. So that's the icon that I'll click on to allow me access ArcGIS online. And immediately I click on it, and again confirm that you can see that window. It's a whitish window with the top left written Autodesk Connector for ArcGIS. So what it does, it takes me into the cloud where Evelyn has published the GIS data. And you can see it automatically, it takes me to the cloud. It remembers the project boundaries. I don't have to, that's why I was saying that I don't have to worry about georeferencing and the information about how the data were published. So my aim is to just go into the content, which is my content right now, because they have been authored by our internal team, for example. Then I will search for that specific data. So she named them as the Kisumu. So I'll search for Kisumu, for example, just to filter off everything. Then I will click on it. So you can see it gives me the information about Kisumu. So I'll just choose the specific one. And once I've chosen that specific one, it will list for me all the possible GIS data that has been published by the planners from the ArcGIS Pro. So my aim, remember, was to bring in the proposed roads, proposed corridors, proposed building parcels, together with the existing, if I need to update the existing, as opposed to what I've already got in InfraWorks. So what I'll just do, I'll just bring a sample of them, because usually it can consume sometimes to bring those, which we do not want to spend much time on. So I'll just bring in, for example, anything to do with the parcels. So I'll select proposed LPDP parcels, that's the plots. And once I select it, I choose how I want them to be brought in InfraWorks. So I want that to come in as a parcel. Then the existing roads also, I want them to come in also as existing roads. Then the surveyed parcels should come in as parcels. Then I don't want to bring in the transportation network. I want to bring in the surveyed parcels again, just to come in as parcels. Proposed sewer lines, I want them to come in as pipe networks, for example. So those are, that's how they have been defined. So one more parcels should be down here. Let me see. Let's say proposed land use should also come in as parcels. So once I've selected those, I'll just start with those, bring those as a start, because if I select all of them, it may take much time. So then I'll just click on add. So you basically see that it means that they're all going to be taken to the context of my project where I want to add additional design data. So I'll just click on add to my design. And then it takes me back into InfraWorks, and it will read through the ArcGIS data, georeferencing and bringing them into the correct context. So she had proposed them in ArcGIS program, but now I want to use them within a design program without having to do the manual importation and exportation, and again, without having to worry about the coordinate system and the georeferencing things. So I'll just give it some few seconds. It will bring them, and then you'll go to see basically how they now update the context of my design. So then after that, I can now start developing those roads into the actual designs. And I can also even bring in the actual design models. So like, let's say the architect and the engineers who are designing in Revit, I can bring in the Revit models within the context of the building. So maybe I selected a multiple object twice, like I selected roads twice, but you can quickly see the parcels, for example, sorry? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, your screen is visible.
Okay. So I was saying, so for example, you can see here, these are the way these parcels have been subdivided. This is a proposed pipe network is here. For example, you can see this is a pipe network. There's a proposed road reserve here, and you can see it also coincides with an existing road there. But this is how they are proposed to do the road corridors within the project area. So, but what I've done, I might have selected one of them twice, so that's why the two roads are overlapping on the same area. So what I've done this, I've generated this before, because I know somebody doing this kind of with the hurry on time, they may not come out correctly. So what I've done before, I created a proposal where I brought in all of them in the way that you would expect them to look like. So I'll just switch into that proposal to basically enable us see where at the point where I've brought all those information within InfraWorks. So that's what I'm switching into. So you can see here, so I quickly brought it so you can see like the conservation or the recreational area. These are the actual building parcels, the roads. And if I go slightly below the ground, we should be able to see like the pipe networks that I was mentioning. So like I can see how there's a junction of these three pipe networks. It could be for sewer lines or anything like that. So I'll just take the next 2 minutes to show how we can add additional design information. So like if I want to now add a road, like you can see there's a road reserve here, which is going to service these adjacent parcels here. So to do that, you just go to what we call Create tab on the top left. Then I will say I want to do a transportation feature, which is road. So I want to create a planning road, because remember we said we are planning. So I'll select that, and various types of roads that you can use to plan, whether you're going to do a dual carriageway based on the size of the corridor that you have. So like this, just a simple corridor. I'll just say that the road will start from this side without intersecting with the main one there. It's going to go like this, just running through that particular piece. And you can see this can also enable you as a planner to know when the designer is working, they will know whether the road corridors that you have provided are adequate based on the size of the design that they want to work with. And remember that there are various guidelines guiding you on the sizes of the road that you should allow for based on the kind of development that you're working in. So once I've done it, I just double click to end it there. So that was basically where I'm starting off from a planning road perspective. But since I'm also at the design at the same point, because I was just looking at the space that the planner provided. Is it suitable for my road that I want to design? So I've seen that the road is fitting within that particular corridor. So the next thing is to convert this to a design road. Then I'll say just convert, and I'll say convert it to a component road or a design road. And once I've done that, it will quickly allow me to have more control of the road in terms of the quantities and the vertical geometry of the road. So I can quickly go into the profile view of the road to just understand how the road runs with respect to the existing ground, for example. But those are more engineering, so I want to go into them. So something of interest also, if I want to create a junction or an intersection, you can just convert two roads into a component road, and immediately that is done, you will be able to have a more interactive junction, which you can quickly be able to know in terms of how will the vehicles be flowing, the left turns, right turns, the curb returns, and what have you. So basically the smaller details that the designers and the planners should be able to have in place when they are planning for a particular area. So those are some of the information that you can quickly be able to analyze. So also with it, you can also perform things like traffic simulation analysis. Because remember that we said that this development here will be attracting more traffic, and more traffic will also be generated from it. So what is the impact of that particular traffic that you have there on the existing infrastructure within the surrounding? So InfraWorks also allows you to perform that analysis. So I'll just go into the Analyze tab to show that. And if I click on traffic, it will be able to show me the already features that I've already created. So I've done this before. I've defined a traffic study area. So what I'll do, I'll just run quickly the traffic simulation. So based on the traffic that's within the environment, within the existing area, and what you have within the development that you are planning. So ideally, you have seen some people sitting on the road areas with the papers writing some information. So that's basically what should inform the number of traffic that you have on this before you start the analysis. So you should have the actual traffic data on the ground and the data that you project for the people that are going to occupy that new development, so that you just don't design, then all of a sudden within 2 months, people are already experiencing traffic. So there are more analysis that you can do, like things like the potential of flooding of that particular area. You can know how it's going to flood. You can also do mobility simulation, like have you provided adequate footpaths, cycle tracks, and something which are related with such kind of analysis. So I'll just give it some few seconds. I think it's almost getting done, so that I can quickly show you how it will show us the various vehicles flowing and such kind of analysis. So you can see when I click on play, you can basically see it shows you like if a vehicle was to come from one point, how easy is it to maneuver to its destination. So again, this requires still more analysis and input in terms of knowing the things like origin and destination. Like if someone wants to move from this residential estate to a nearby shopping mall, what's the convenience and the ease of which they'll be able to identify and go to that particular area based on the various infrastructure that you have provided, in addition to what was already existing. So those are some of the quick analysis that you can do, just to mention one of them. So I'll move that. I'll just exit from that traffic simulation. So presentation also, if you want to present with InfraWorks, is very, very easy. You don't need to do PowerPoint presentation. So I'll just assume that you have done with our design. So if you want to present, it allows you to create more like workflows, the walkthroughs and videos, which you can just go and sit down with your clients or the non-technical stakeholders to show them how you can quickly, whatever you are proposing as a planner or as a designer, or a combination of both. So like you're showing that this is the road that you are going to do, these are the various junctions. When you do it, finally, you'll be having this kind of footwalks or footpaths. The street lights are going to look like this, okay? These are going to be the trees we must plant like this, like maybe just to enhance conservation. So you generate this kind, and this is a video that you can actually export and share via and play it via any other media player. So like this, we're saying that once it is done, we'll have a church. This is going to be the recreational area with a church, a swimming pool, but we have to do kind of a conservation of planting trees and things like this based on the plan that you have generated. So whether it's going to be approved or not, the making changes and updates will be very, very simple and very, very easier. So like what I'm having somewhere here is a building which was designed in Revit, which has been finally brought within the InfraWorks to just incorporate the context and the content based on what you are working on as the designers. So basically that's what we had planned to do. Because of time, we want to go further than that. So maybe we'll quickly take questions if there is.
Thank you, Elijah. So the purpose of this presentation was to show how integrating both GIS and BIM is possible, just to streamline the various workflows of built environment professionals with a focus on the real estate. Yes, so thank you. I think we can now take questions.